Hey creatives, and welcome to Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday, and this is the last episode in my celebration of Black History Month. So I thought the last two I've talked about African culture. Let's talk about African-American folklore, and today we're talking John Henry. Let's get started. Alright guys, so like I said, this is the last episode of Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday in the Black History Month celebration series. I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to check this stuff out. I really appreciate it. I really think it's important for all of us to know these things, and a lot of them are just fun and can spark a lot of great imagination and future stories. I am going to do a 5x5. The 5x5 today will be books about African American folk tales and legends. But before we jump into that, if we have never met, my name is Kim and I'm a creative freelancer with a passion for film and the written word. If we have met, welcome back. And so we're also going to be talking about John Henry, which is probably one of the best known African American folk tales, but we'll go into a breakdown of the story and then kind of what my feelings were about it and that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into the 5x5, 5 books on African American folk tales and legends, and I will link to those in the description below. They will be affiliate links, so thank you ahead of time for supporting the channel. Let's jump into this. So one is called African American Folktales, and by the way guys, I do believe all these are available on Amazon, so you can just type in the name and find them, plus I'll have the link down below like I said. So number 2 is called the Annotated African American Folktales. You know, and I will be honest with you, I have not read any of these, but we're all highly suggested, so really like I want to say it's like 4 or 5 stars for each of them. So number 3, so I'm gonna have to read these because they're all super long. So number 3 is African American Folktale Stories from Black Traditions in the New World. Number 4 is The Legend of the Dancing Trees, an African American folktale. And number 5 is The People Could Fly, American Black Folktales. So check out any of those 5 or all of those 5 if this is something you're super interested in. I think we talk, once again, it's kind of like with mythology from last week. We talk a lot about certain folktales and legends, but we don't talk about all of them, and so some of these will be very new to you. And so whenever you read something new or learn something new, if you're anything like me, you get super jazzed and super pumped, and like it sparks your imagination. You start creating stories in your head, and which will be great because then the legends and stuff that you're reading won't be as unfamiliar to everyone else because you will be able to introduce them to more people. The more knowledge and the more education all of us have, the better this world will be. So let's talk about John Henry, which I said, by the way, is probably one of the best known stories of African American folktales. I knew about it. I want to say, and this is horrible, but I want to say the first introduction I had was there was like a Disney short, and I think it came with like Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan, and I want to say John Henry was a part of it. I don't think it was the right representation by any means, but I think that was my first introduction to it. So let's talk about John Henry, the steel driving man. I'm just going to kind of give you an overlay of what the story is about. All right, so overall synopsis of the story is John Henry was a freed slave, and once he was freed, he began to work for the railroads driving steel rods, and he was like the strongest guy. He would wield a huge hammer, and he would do it all day long. He was the strongest man. It would take one single strike with the 10-pound hammer, and it would be in there, and he could do tons and tons of those all day. So he was like a big popular guy. Well, the greedy railroad guy decided instead of going around the mountain, that they would go through the mountain. And so John Henry jumped on, people challenged him, and he would go through. Now it was very dangerous. So eventually what the greedy railroad guy decided was this guy showed up with this mechanical, like steam driven, like punch, right? And so he was going to go with that. But John Henry said, no, I can do it faster. I can do it better. And so he picked up 2 hammers. So he had two 20-pound hammers. So the bet was at the end of the thing, whoever had done the most would win. So John Henry picked up his 2 20-pound hammers and he started going, and the guy started going. 35 minutes later, John Henry was victorious. But at the end of this, he collapsed to the ground. And so the legend says that sometimes in the blackness of the tunnel, you can still hear John Henry and his 20-pound hammers going. So what does this folk tale mean? What does it show? There's a lot of social meaning to it, and I'm sure I could dive really deep into it. But ultimately, I think it was about the pride that this man took in his job and the Industrial Revolution, which would change how things were done. I think change, if we boil it down to one simple word, it was about change. He went from a slave to being freed. He went from having to do what someone else told him to being one of the most prestigious men on the railroad. Then change came when the steam-driven thing came, and then, you know, he beat it, but he still died. And so it was talking about how the Industrial Revolution was changing everything, and that there would be people and careers and ways of life that would change. So all in all, John Henry, the steel driving man, is not only about the power of freedom and the power of pride and strength, but also the story of change. Like, change was a continual message in this. So I think it's a great story. So I think if you've never read it, check it out. Check out some of those 5 books. John Henry the Steel Driving Man is one of the like I said, the most popular and well-known folktales. There are so many more that just don't get as much attention that I think should. So guys, that's it for Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday. If you guys dug the video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you guys are digging on Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday, please hit that subscribe button. And thank you once again for joining me for my Celebrating Black History Month series. I really appreciate it. And remember, I do much more content. So if you've been digging it so far, go ahead and that subscribe button. You know, you'll get a lot more great content. And guys, that is it for Magical, Mystical, Mythical Monday. Until next time, creatives, safe journeys.